Hello, Red Wave. Welcome to Bulldogs podcast. We're your hosts, Caleb Nail, Caleb Pletz. Today, we get to know Sacramento State Hornets with our special guest, the one and only play-by-play broadcaster of the Hornets, Jason Ross. Jason, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, guys. And for today only, you can call me Caleb, just because.
Right. Great name.
Yeah, it is.
So Jason's going to join us today to talk about the Hornets and catch us up on players, strengths, weaknesses. Is our weekly rundown of our upcoming opponent. So Jason, thank you for coming on to, into enemy territory.
Mm-hmm.
We will be kind, though. I promise.
Good. Appreciate that.
So first things first, I'm curious. I want to know what went on last week with San Jose State. We saw it didn't end in your favor, but I do know that Sac State is preseason ranked top 10 in the FCS. There's high expectations. Didn't go the way you wanted first week. Tell us about it. What did you see? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, the first game is always a mystery. You just don't know what you have. And going through camp and practices, the one thing that stood out, I would say, was the offense looked really good and the defense looked a little vulnerable. So they're playing against one another, and you're wondering what's real. Do they have a really good offense, or does the defense have some issues? And then you play against another opponent in San Jose State, and the Hornets left a lot of points out there in the first half. They had a 14-0 lead early on the road. Had a first and goal that they got stopped, a fourth and inches that they didn't score on. They missed a field goal and had 5 turnovers. So they had the lead with 12 minutes to go in the game and gave up the last 21 points. The final score looks worse than I think the game was. But, as you play a game, you turn it over 5 times, you're not supposed to win. So they made too many mistakes. They had chances to win, which is what they were trying to do, and obviously pull off another FBS upset, which they've been doing. But they had to play better to do so. So they kind of owe it to themselves, I guess. I mean, they earned the loss. It's a tough lesson, but they earned it.
As I will say, I picked you guys to win that game. Didn't go the way we wanted. But you guys, like you said, you were in it. You were winning. And to be honest, I changed the channel when you were winning. I thought, let's go Hornets, man. They got this. So, tough one. Caleb, any questions about last week's game between the Hornets and the Spartans?
I didn't get to watch too much of it, but I think there might have been an injury on the quarterback end. So do you have any insight on the status of Sac State quarterback?
Yeah, so as of now, it's still early enough in the week. There's still plans on playing Caden Bennett, who was the one that got hurt in the game. He actually came back in, so I think that was encouraging. But they did get a couple other injuries, guys, that was a little bit concerning. And, everybody's kind of week to week. The worst one that was on TV was actually a pivotal play in the game. The Hornets gave up their lead in the fourth quarter after they gave up a touchdown. So it's a 4-point game, ready to have the ball. And on the ensuing kickoff, Michael Johnson, our returner, got hit really, really hard. I mean, basically got knocked out, and it was a scary scene. Fumbled the ball, which felt trivial at the time, but, stretchers, paramedics. I mean, he was strapped to the gurney, and all of it was precautionary. And I say thankfully, and it's easy for me to say all he has is a concussion, but it was a really scary play. And he also did fumble, gave San Jose State the ball inside the 20. And from a 4-point deficit, now it's 11. And that's when it started to slip on him. But yeah, injuries, are a concern, especially when you play up. And they're going to have that concern again this week against Fresno. And really, it's every week. You're trying to get out of there as clean as possible. But they're deeper than they've been in the past. So I think they can handle some of these things, but you just don't want too many of them happen during the season.
Yeah, I was listening to you guys on the radio a couple days ago, and Coach Thompson was talking about how he can have more guys in practice, a lot of coaches on the practice field, and how he's really excited about that. And I didn't know that that was affecting the FCS level as well. So I like that. I'm excited for FCS. And by the way, I appreciate the FCS, and they have a very fun playoff. Jason, I want to move into the strengths of this team. So you jumped out to lead over San Jose State. What would you say the strengths are for the Hornets this year coming into week 2?
Yeah, I would say going into the year, it's certainly the offense. The offensive line always can help in any game. The offensive line is led by an All-American, Jackson Slater, who's been here a long time, and he's their best. He's a pro prospect. So having him anchor the offensive line, we were talking about injuries on the previous question. One of their all-conference performers, Nathan Mejia, got injured in camp and is lost for the season. So I think their line would have even been better. But, I mean, they held up just fine against San Jose State, had a 100-yard rusher. A lot of experience in the return in the skill players. So 2 quarterbacks that played last year, multiple running backs that played. The receivers are back. Tight ends are. It's just a good, well-rounded offense that at our level, I think over the season will look good. So I would say going in, it's certainly offensive line and just offensive experience for the guys for sure.
If you could pick a shot on defense, what would you pick?
Go.
Was that the concern on defense or strengths?
Strength.
That's the biggest question. So it's a good note, but it's a little bit concerning. So the Hornets, I think, had officially 1 player coming back that played more than 5 games last year, that started more than 5 games. So it's just they cleaned it up. Now, the good note is Will Leota, who came over from Utah Tech as a transfer, was already an all-conference player and has never played for the Hornets. So that's kind of the respect they had for him from their league and coming over to Sacramento State. Now, ironically, he also got called for targeting in the first half of last week's game and was removed from the game. So one of your best defensive players. I mentioned the injuries, the turnovers. I mean, the game was there for them, but by the end, it certainly got away. But it'll be nice to see Will Leota hopefully play a full game. But it also is attached, guys, to, I would say, the weaknesses. It's new. There's a lot of new faces. And San Jose, Nick Nash had a big game, 10 catches, threw a touchdown, caught a couple, big target. He was a problem. And the Hornets probably could have given up a few more bigger plays than they did. They left some guys open. So I would say in one game, now I was closing my eyes a few times when they were throwing deep balls because I thought San Jose State could have exploited that a little more.
Got it. Yeah, I know from the Fresno State perspective, going up against a really strong defensive crew in Michigan. I know from the fan perspective, we're curious about seeing, okay, how is this Fresno State offense able to maybe compete against more realistic competition for our skill level? So for Fresno State, one of our biggest wide receiver is, I think he's going to still be out, in Josiah Freeman. So most of Fresno State's receivers are like 5'10" to 6 foot. So it'll be interesting to see how the matchup in the secondary is with most likely not having a size advantage, but having that quickness. So yeah, that'll certainly be a matchup to look out for.
Yeah, I would think Fresno would explode. I mean, they all have film. They saw the first game, and there were plays that were made, but there are also plays that were missed that I think if Fresno executes a little better than San Jose State, they can do that. So I'm honestly worried a little bit about the defense and the back end. And for the Hornets to have success, they're going to have to be able to score. I think that is, like I said, their strength. But watching you guys play, I mean, it was tough for Michigan to move the ball. Michigan's going to be a better offense than the Hornets, I would think. And playing there in a hostile environment, I thought Fresno State held up just fine, and they too had their chances. So, I look back. The Hornets have played Fresno State a couple times. I've been there for all these games, and I would say the last time was probably the best chance the Hornets had. It was tied in the fourth quarter, and then Fresno scored the last couple times, and they were the better team, obviously. But when last year, Sacramento State went to Stanford. You got to just stay in the game, and then they pounced at the end. The year before that was the only time I've called one of these FCS, FBS upsets where they were literally the better team against Colorado State 2 years ago and won 41-10. I was floored by that. They've won at Colorado, but last-second field goal, and won on a 2-point conversion at Oregon State. So it kind of takes a lot of things to go right. And I think even if we look at week one of the FCS versus FBS, there were a ton of teams that were in it right there, fourth quarter, and almost all of them lost. I think right now, to date, only Montana State has a win, and they actually came back from 17. They shouldn't have won that in the week 0 matchup. So everything has to go right. Fresno would have to make mistakes, and Sacramento State, I think, would be confident that they can compete. It's just the longer they're in the game, then they start to think, okay, maybe we now can win this game. So that's what they hope to execute. It's just, can they on Saturday?
Got it. Maybe a quick follow-up on the FCS mindset going up against FBS opponent. I know, oftentimes early in the season, coaching staffs are hesitant about showing too much in terms of the playbook. I mean, what's the coaching mindset for Sacramento State going up against San Jose and then Fresno here? Are they full playbook? Let's go out and knock them off, or hey, we still have, our conference play that we're concerned about. We don't want to give too much away to our conference opponent. So do you have any insight there on that mindset?
Yeah, I think there's two schools of thought. My read on the first week is I didn't think they held anything back. They didn't really do any trick plays. Maybe that's some things they held back. But you also want to execute and practice what you are trying to do against Montana State, UC Davis, Cal Poly. And, if some of it works against Fresno State and San Jose State, then they go, okay, well, note that this worked against, some tougher competition. So I would say over the years, the gap isn't as large as it once was to me calling the games, but there is enough of a gap. And as the game goes on, or maybe the depth of Fresno State, the more scholarships. I remember, guys, the first game Sac State ever played up that I called was, I think, back in 2002, and they played at UTEP. And so we did a little toss sweep early in the game to our fastest running back, and they had a 6'5" defensive end that just easily ran them down. I'm like, whoa, that's not like our league. That doesn't happen. But now our guys have gotten better. I wouldn't say the FBS has decreased its level, but ours has elevated, and we've done better recruiting and just gotten better. And so you look at some of the guys, you go, there's not a huge difference. I just would say San Jose State and Fresno State have more guys that can play than the Hornets overall would.
Where would you say specifically the Hornets could take advantage of Fresno, whether that be a matchup, a position group? Is there anything specific that you think they could exploit?
I don't know if there's, because watching the game, I mean, I'm sitting here thinking the Hornets' strength is offense. I was blown away, honestly, by Fresno's defense. I just thought they were quick, powerful, strong. So, I mean, I think the Hornets, to have success, I mean, they protected the quarterback last week. They had a 100-yard rusher. So, I mean, that's a lot of times when, we went to Boise one year, didn't get past the 50, got one first down. I mean, it was just, it wasn't even fair. And it didn't even look like they belonged. So the last couple times they've played up, it hasn't felt that way. They've lost some games by 20 points, but you go, yeah, they're competing. They're not going to win, but they're not embarrassed. So it's been a while since that happened. And I would think for them to have success Saturday, they're going to have to be able to hold up at the offensive line. And if they do that, then I think they'll execute their offense, and if they can get, some points on the board and maybe live in that 20, if they can get to 30 would be fantastic. Now, I don't know if they'll get that high, but you start to get to 17, 20 points. If Fresno gets 35, it's not a laugher, but you're also in that game longer. So again, obviously they'll need some turnovers. They'll need some things to go their way, and they can't turn it over 5 times. It's kind of amazing they were in the game with 5 turnovers. So, yeah, I mean, it was week 1. I hope there's an improvement from week 1 to week 2 for the guys.
Okay, now's the time where I would ask about impact players. So are there names, you mentioned the quarterback, some names that Bulldog fans should watch out for come Saturday? Yeah,
so it's weird to come back from a season with, the best high-profile name being an offensive lineman. I mean, as far as the most experience and most decorated and most awards. So he probably won't stick out to the fans. But the tight end Coleman Kuntz is coming back.
Sorry, I just want to ask, where on the offensive line is he at?
Well, he can play all 5 positions, but he's scheduled to start at left guard. The center that I mentioned earlier, Nathan Mejia, got hurt, and the offensive line coach, Chris Richardson's son, Caden's now playing center, but sometimes Jackson Slater goes over there. I mean, he can basically be moved to all 5 spots. He's number 76, so he's I mean, all 6'6", 300. He's super weight room freak and fast. So, I mean, the scouts are looking at him. He's one of the best linemen we've ever had. But Coleman Kuntz, big tight end, he's good. He's number 82. Quarterback Caden Bennett. We also played Carson Conklin last week. He's number 17. Bennett's a versatile dual threat QB. He can run and throw and has had some experience in the program. Our 100-yard rusher last week was Elijah Tolliver. He's been an experienced guy in the program. And then the receivers are just solid. I know they're really, really excited about a freshman in Danny Scudero, who caught a touchdown last week. He's small, but he's super fast, number 10. So between Jared Gibson, who comes back as an all-conference receiver, I mean, more of the notable names are on offense, but I would say those are some of the guys for the Bulldogs to be aware of.
And on the rushing or offense and rushing attack, is the quarterback at all a factor there in the rushing game? Like, should Fresno State fans expect QB running the ball, whether designed or not, because that tends to be a bit of a weakness for Fresno State, whether it doesn't matter who the defensive coordinator is. That just always seems to be a bit of a weakness.
Yeah, that's Caden Bennett. I'm assuming he'll start. He was the scheduled starter last week and played, left the game, like I said, and came back in. But Caden can run too. I mean, he's a really good athlete, very fast. The puzzle, guys, with him is he gets hit. Like he doesn't slide. He's slide of frame too. So the coaches want him to use that improv and escapability and create plays, but they can't keep having him getting hit. And so they're really working on that. So it's like you're trying to calm him down in a sense, and he reads it better, but he still takes too many hits for my liking too, and I know for the coaching staff. So I know Fresno's always going to have a spy on him because he can, make a 2-yard play into a 10, 12, 18, and just like that, or go the distance. He's really versatile. And last year, the upset of Stanford, I mean, he had the best game of his career. He ran for over 100, threw for a couple hundred, a couple scores, and he can be dangerous as a two-way guy.
Does the playbook change whether Caden's playing or not?
I wouldn't say it changes. It's just Conklin won't run as much. I mean, he can run, but Caden's a runner, where Conklin's a better pure thrower. He's the freshman, and both, like I said, both played last week. They utilized Conklin last year in the rule that you could play 4 games and not lose your red shirt. So he played exactly 4, and I would say 2, he was spectacular. The other 2, you went, looks like a freshman. So, San Jose State was a fairly hostile environment, but being at Fresno before, Fresno's way more intimidating and louder, and that's good for these guys to go through it. The toughest one like that in our league is Montana, and Conklin played in that last year, and it looked like probably me out there. I mean, he was shaken up a little bit by the noise and by the team. So he's a better thrower, I would say, Conklin, but Bennett's more experience in that two-way threat.
Well, I got to say, last year, our one FCS matchup went to overtime. So it's kind of – I'm kind of worried. Like, Sac State's tough. We need to execute for sure. Jason, can you give us – I don't know if you're allowed to because you're play-by-play, but your expectations – I'll put it that way – your expectations for Saturday.
My expectations are the Hornets are underdogs. They should be underdogs. I think they should believe they can win. It doesn't matter what I think, right? That's what they have to think they're going to go in there and win. I would say if this game is played 10 times, Fresno State wins it 9 times. So you don't have to beat them 10 times. You have to beat them once. And so when they've been in these games where they've pulled off the upset, it's an amazing feeling that I've had kind of the same thought. Like, I hope they compete. I hope they're close. Maybe they'll have the lead at some point. And then as the game goes, you're like, there's not a big difference. I mean, again, last year at Stanford, it was what and who was the better team. Now, they might have had a few guys that went pro, but it didn't have the overall impact on the game. You're like, these look like 2 even teams. And by the end, the Hornets had the last drive and scored the last point. So I think they're going to believe they can win. But, I mean, my expectations, of course, I want them to win, but I want them to be in the game, get out of there injury-free, and help this build going into the season. So, I mean, logically, Fresno's a favorite for a reason. I think they should win, but that's why you play them, right? I mean, if Fresno makes some mistakes, Sac State plays better than last week. And there's also the mindset of, I'm trying to think how Fresno's thinking. Like, they had to be so up for last week. What an opportunity to go to the big house. I mean, I was fired up for them. I know, I got family down in the Valley, and I know what that's like to go there. And I saw the local news down there last weekend after we played Thursday. I went and visited in-laws down there, and the news reports people down in Ann Arbor and hoping for the upset. And that's the way you should feel. So coming home, I know the coaching staff's going to have them ready, but I'm sure the fans think the Bulldogs will win, and they should think that. But, the players can't think that. They got to go out and play well. So I don't know if there's a little bit of a mental drop-off from them expecting to win. Not that they're going to totally play that way, but, playing last week for the Hornets, playing up, they got to have that same approach that, hey, anything can happen, and if they play their best, maybe they got a shot.
Certainly, yeah. I think that there's always a chance for like an emotional letdown game after the big first game that the Fresno State had at Michigan. But I think coming home and the first home game usually is pretty well attended for Fresno State, and then depending on how the rest of the games go, usually the attendance kind of tapers off. So I would expect the stadium to be full and loud on Saturday to hopefully make it true home field advantage.
Yeah, and I love it. I mean, as a visiting broadcast, I mean, it's fun. It's more fun to be in these environments. It's been great when we've been there in the past. All we see is red. There'll be a little sprinkling of some Hornet fans that made the trip down there, but very small in percentage compared to the Bulldogs. And they should be excited about their team. I mean, last week, again, I'm not just saying it, that they were in that game, represented themselves quite well, a few things here and there, and they have one of their biggest wins. I mean, everybody knows, you guys know how many big wins Fresno has had over the years, so they're more than capable of having a great season going forward. So, we know Coach Skipper, he was up here for a season or two at Sac State. So I'm glad he's got an opportunity there after Tedford said step down. So it's, I always kind of root for Fresno State just because they're in the general area as well. And I like it when you guys do well. So just maybe not Saturday.
Right. Last thing, because I forgot to ask, and sometimes these people get looked over. Special teams, Jason. Mm-hmm. What are special teams looking like for the Hornets this year?
Yeah, a lot of experience from long snapper to holder to kicker to punter. All of it's back. Everybody's played there, so I would say that's an area of strength. Zach Schreiner was a good kicker last year. Cal McGuff is a really good punter, rollout punter, Aussie style. Return game is solid. A lot of times they just do fair catch and just kind of play field position. So if they return, it's a little bit more surprising. They actually had a couple of kick return attempts last week, but I would say that's an area of strength that has been a weapon from time to time for these guys. Wasn't a factor one way or the other last week, but it's a good group. They've got a lot of experience there.
Mr. Pletz, you got anything else for Mr. Ross?
Probably just one more question, just general looking forward to the season for yourself and your team. Like, do you have like a conference opponent that you look forward to playing every year, whether it's the stadium, you like their press box or anything, like any opponent that you look forward to the matchup every year?
Yeah, my favorite place to go in our league is Montana. Unfortunately, we don't play them this year. We went there last year, and they were the best team in the league last year. UC Davis is our rival, so that's always our final game, the Causeway Classic at the end of the year. I don't know. I just love it, and it's been such a better spot, guys, for the last 4 years because I've done this. This is my 27th season, and I've probably called more 2-9, 1-10, 3-8 years than what's happened the last couple of years. I always dreamt what it would be like to make the FCS playoffs, and now they've done it 4 years in a row. They're ranked in the top 10. Like, this is – I'm not going to ever take it for granted. I mean, again, they're expected to likely lose. So if they're 0-2, there's a lot of season left. They've played up twice. They made their money by, Fresno State paying them, San Jose State paying them. And, and then they got 2 more non-league games in the conference. So they can still chase all the goals that they want us to get to the playoffs for a 5th straight year, try to win a Big Sky championship, and ultimately get to the FCS National Championship, something they've never done, but that's what they're chasing. So, I know a couple of years, like when they upset Oregon State, I felt like one of the thrills of a lifetime, and I think they went 4-7 that year. So, I mean, it was to start the year, like, this team is unbelievable. Found out that Oregon State went 1-10. They just weren't a great team that year. The year I said earlier when they smoked Colorado State, we ended up having a really good team and going to the playoffs. Colorado State, I think, won 1 game. So sometimes you got to get another team that's down. I don't think that's the case for Fresno. But, so their goals, no matter what happens Saturday, like if they win, it obviously propels them going forward. But if they don't, it's like, all right, played 2 tough opponents. Now let's go to start the rest of the season.
It's going to be fun. Jason, thank you so much. Is there anything that you want to share with the Red Wave that we missed?
Well, can they not cheer so loud when we have the ball to get some offsides or anything? I'm sure that won't happen. I will say this, guys. Are you going to be at the game? You guys will be there, right? Saturday?
Yeah.
Okay, good. I would say this, of all the places we've been, they've been like the friendliest tailgates and showing up, and they seem like everybody feeds us. It's like, we're wearing green. We're the opponent. Come on in. Check out this tri-tip. Check out these, steak and beans or burger. It's like, wow, this is great. I could hang out here all day. So I would compliment at least the people we've run across in the tailgates have been really, really friendly to us.
Well, that's good to hear because I feel like our fans have had kind of a negative trajectory in terms of
Really?
reputation lately. Yeah, just
Oh.
a lot of fights in the stands, and just tending to be hostile, which can create a fun football environment. But
Yeah.
there are a handful that tend to take it a little too far. But that is really good to hear that you've had a good experience.
Yeah. So I mean, we've been getting fed. Now I need to bring my boxing gloves. What's going on?
That's the wonders of alcohol, I suppose.
Exactly. Maybe we're there so early they're not quite warm yet. Let's say.
There you go.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for taking your time and spending it with us, because I know there's plenty of things that you could be doing. So thank you very much, Jason.
Yeah, I'm just doing my prep, getting ready, getting my charts ready for Fresno and Sac State and the stuff I love to do. So I look forward to it. Caleb, hopefully I'll see you guys on Saturday.
Looking forward to it. Thanks, Jason.
Thank you.